Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Connor here. Welcome back to a One Leeds video. This is a review of the game. Leeds United have lost again. The fourth straight defeat, the sixth loss in 8 games. And today it's been at the hands of newly promoted Fulham. I've sort of said everything I need to really when it comes to my thoughts on the process, my thoughts on the board, my thoughts on Jesse Marsch. So I'll probably just consolidate that today, maybe add a little bit of a sprinkle into it. But I just sat there today and was just almost sad. Not angry, really, not ranty, believe it or not. Just sad at the state of affairs that is Leeds United at the minute, and just the lack of structure from board level, the absolute naivety and gross negligence when it comes to the board as well, in investing in the squad, in pumping up a squad, which is tragic when it comes to depth. And it's still looking back in 2017. Some of them actually played under Thomas Christiansen, believe it or not. I don't know if some of you Leeds fans actually remember who he was. So this is the state of affairs at the minute with Leeds, and it doesn't seem to be getting better. It seems to be getting a lot worse. We seem to have brought better players in for the starting 11. But a lot of those players who last season were done are now on the bench and are providing poor bench options as it is. So I wouldn't really necessarily say that's depth anyway. And a lot of those players aren't able to get ahead of other players in the squad either. So you can't really say it's competition. Leeds are in real trouble right now. Real trouble. And I've almost been on more of a rhetoric of frustration and thinking to myself, it will get better. It will get better. In the back of my head, I've always thought, there's going to be a result. It's going to be frustrating, but there's going to be a result there. And hopefully, even if the board do sack Jesse Marsch, we go on to better things. But just watching how bad the team is, the calibre of player, and as I've just mentioned before several times, the depth, it's alarming. Now, Fulham were much better than us today. Much better. Harrison Reed should have scored within 10 minutes and it followed the same plan. Leeds had a really energetic start and Fulham went the other end, and with one attack they should have scored. Mark Rocker, unbelievable tackle. Obviously they got the 3 goals, which we'll get into, but Pereira went through on goal as well. They had a couple of really good chances to the side of that, and you're looking at another game where Leeds could have been absolutely pummeled again, and this is by a newly promoted side. Who are we better than at the minute? Who are we better than? Because we ain't better than anyone in this division for me at the minute. Not anyone. And that, you even saw a gulf for me today between Leeds and Fulham. You look at how incisive, how quick they were. The players that they brought in the summer. Pereira, what a player he is. Mitrovic hitting his stride as well. Decordova Reed was bloody playing right back for the entire game. But the recruitment Fulham have done, even though at the start of the season we said it was marginal, it's been decent. It's been really decent. And so incisive, so quick. The counter-attacks, the transition, they just flowed so much better than Leeds United's. Now, it did look like we were playing a little bit more out wide today. I guess there was more switch plays, which we've not seen. We've not seen Liam Cooper get the ball and switch the ball like that since the Marcelo Bielsa days. And I don't know if that was a little bit of a panic. Let's start playing with more width, which is what I said on the preview. But then the identity and ideologies of what we're going forward with at the minute under Jesse Marsch go against that. It's all about centrality. It's all about being narrow and compact. So what are we doing now? What are we doing? I'm struggling to see anything at the minute. There are no positives whatsoever. The first goal went in, and I'll be brutally honest with you, I didn't celebrate. Now, I am a very passionate Leeds supporter, and as you can probably tell, and when Leeds score goals, normally it's I can't watch myself back really, and I'm the loudest person in the room. I didn't even react because I know what's going to happen. I knew, and you started to see that really towards the back end of the Bielsa era as well. You knew what was going to happen subsequently. We were conceding a lot of goals, obviously. But like Brownie said previously, I mean, we had a real downtrodden squad there. I did think Bielsa did need to go at the time. I thought we would have gone down last season. Playing that style of football, we were just too open. But I'm trying to think to myself, has the time now between Marcelo Bielsa, the back end of his tenure, and what we've seen now with Jesse Marsch, has it got any better? Because that's what we were told last year when Bielsa went. We were told that there were going to be better results. We were told the performances were going to be better. You actually had Kinnear talking on podcasts about Leeds being too leaky at the back and that getting rectified. Now, for me, when you look at 23, 24 games played and a pre-season, players brought in, yep, he's not 100% had the backing, and we're going to get onto that in a little bit. The backing of the board, which is, them just doing what they normally do every single window, shorthanding the manager, shorthanding fans. We know all this with this current board. But he has had a little bit of time now, Jesse Marsch, and for him to have a record of 6 wins, and a lot of those wins have asterisks against them. Playing against 9 players and 10 players and teams whose managers have subsequently been sacked in the latter weeks. Having 6 wins out of 24 is just unacceptable. He doesn't know his best 11. He made 6 changes today after making 4 changes against Leicester. Now, after 23, 24 games for me, you simply have to know your best side. You have to be invested in certain players. He dragged the captain off against for the Leicester game, put Llorente in there with Junior Firpo, which I thought was a staggeringly bad decision. Took the best player off within 60 minutes and did the normal thing where he chucks Joe Gelhardt on with about 3 minutes to go. It's another reactive thing, which he continues to do. He's a very reactive manager. And once again today, we saw an absolute bizarre starting 11, and we're going to get into that in just a little bit. I'm just going to read some of your comments out. They're absolutely flying in. Fernando Apostolo, great name. Do you think the board are afraid of a risk with another coach and fail the choice again? Yeah, we're gonna get into that in just a little bit, mate. Jesse has to go. Tactics and player choices are terrible. Agree, the board haven't backed him. Complete shambles. Either way, Jack Harrison is playing on the right. We're going to get into that as well with Jack Harrison, mate. We are just embarrassing, says Iden. Yeah, I can't I can't disagree with that, mate. Scott Lightning is in the building as well. These comments are absolutely flying in. Old Bab says tactically inept, to not stick someone on Polina when we didn't have to move the ball. He ran the game. Yeah, Polina, I thought he was absolutely exceptional. 2.5 million, by the way. Every fan thinks we need to spend 25 million quid on a brand new summer shiny signing. We don't have to do that. We just have to have a better recruitment team to be able to analyse players, not to spend 25 and 30 million as a collective on Dan James and Rodrigo. We're all talking about money and how skint we are. We spent nearly 55 million on those two combined. One's actually on loan at the team that played today and doesn't even start for the team that we played today because they've got more depth, they've got more quality than the player that we loaned out and then subsequently didn't replace because Willie Gnonto's nowhere near the side. It's a shambles, everyone. It is. Please don't get around this. We're going to talk about Jesse Marsch, of course we are, but the board. I am so raging at the board. It's staggering. I'm upset. I'm sad with what's going on with Jesse Marsch. I am, because I like him. He's a really likeable guy, clearly seriously invested. He does need to go. This is it now. He has to go. He has to be sacked. But I'm so frustrated with the board right now, and I'm going to get on to why in just a little bit, of course. Pass the ball to Cine, pass the ball to Cine, pass the ball to Cine. How do you do something as a team and build up play? But Ash, this is exactly what it was last season with Marsch's remaining games, and we were told that it was going to get better. We were told there was going to be an ideology. We were told that his players came in and we were going to start identifying a style of play, and we were going to get better, and we were going to concede less and score more. We were sold all of it, all the jewels by the board. They were coming out and the PR was beautiful around exactly what was going to happen post Marcelo Bielsa. But none of this has happened, and it's the exact same thing that we were seeing towards the back end of last season. It's give it to Cine instead of Rafinha and hope. That's it. Because Cine evidently is the raw quality in the squad. Him and Mark Rocker are the quality in the squad, as you saw today. It's not good enough to have 2 quality players in the Premier League. You have to have at least 5, 6 in really any Premier League side. And we just don't. It's just lackluster. It's an average. It's not even average. Average is kind. It's a bad squad. It's a bad team. And you were asking for another man to come in. What does another man do now? He comes in, he's got Newcastle away. He comes in, he's got Spurs. He comes in, he's got Liverpool. City coming up after the World Cup. Can we just read through these fixtures? It's paining me to do that. I put out a tweet earlier on. Let me read out these fixtures, everybody, what we've had. These are the games we've not got a win from. We haven't got a win from these games. Southampton, Brighton, Brentford, Everton, Villa, Palace, Leicester, Fulham. Not one win. But you will not ask for a better start than that. At the start of the season, I said Leeds at this point, before the World Cup, would end up on, I think I said 22 points. We're currently on 9. With the next 5 games being extremely tough. And I do throw Bournemouth in there, because I think Bournemouth are better than Leeds at the minute. What do you do if a new man comes in? I understand that there's going to be a bit of a fresh impetus, but we've not rectified the issues. The issues in the summer, we brought players in, but we all said at the start of the summer, where did we need to buy? We need a striker. We needed a striker. We've been ravished all season with Patrick Bamford been out and Dan James been the replacement striker. Patrick Bamford had played 5 games from the start. We all wanted a striker as the number 1. They did it as they normally do and bring in other players. PR, brilliant. Social media, expert. All the fans think, oh, we've got a shiny one here, like we all did with Dan James and Junior Firpo when the real issues didn't get addressed last summer as well. Central midfielder, left back, striker. Exact same things happened this summer. And I was saying, don't get put off by the fact they haven't got a left back yet. Don't get put off by the fact that they haven't got a striker yet and a central midfielder. But Blackpool came around, we won 4-0, and the hype was there. It was great, it was fantastic. Everyone was buzzing, it was summer, we were getting into the season. It was Jesse's plan, it was Radrazani's plan. The recruitment had worked, Rocker looked brilliant, Aronson looked electric. But there was still fundamental problems, huge problems. You saw another problem today when it came to the central midfield, and we're going to get into the starting 11 in just a bit. Guys, we're going to be going on for quite a while today, believe it or not, because I've got a lot to say. Please do me a solid. There's about 1,200 of you in the building now. Please just smash a like on the video. It ranks higher. It means more people see it, your mates, your family, whatever. Do us a favour, just like the video. It is free. So I really appreciate that. Sack Jesse, who would come? Jason, that's the question as well. Sorry, guys, if I am missing super chats. I'm just going to get into them. Ryan said, yeah, and you've just said there, who would I get in? It's not my job, my friend, but I can tell you I'm not getting in. Gerrard, we're not getting Pochettino. Sean Dyche is a no for me. Benitez is a no for me. They're short-term plans. Who play dinosaur football. Not for me. It's a real tricky one, and we're going to get into why I think the board are not making a change. Now we really are noticing the loss of Rafa. When he had that spark to help us out and drag us through, Ayling for Christensen was baffling as well. We're going to get into that as well, mate. We're going to get into that. I mean, the Ayling for Christensen thing was just staggering, and a lot of you will have thought that was a really good move, and Ayling was fantastic today. For me, he was at fault for the first goal, and in the entire first half, Fulham were targeting him. Willian was running at him every single time. A 34-year-old Willian was dancing past Ayling every single time. I understand he had a few nice shots. He chested it down. He was decent in the opposition half. Put a really good ball in for Patrick Bamford. But when it comes to defensive responsibility, he's just not good enough. He's just not good enough. And I do not understand from a managerial perspective. And I really want to structure this a little bit better, guys, because we've just been speaking about the board and now we're just talking about Ayling. But I'm just responding to your super chat. Christensen's been our best player for the last one of our better players for the last 3 to 4 games. He's been growing in confidence. He's been getting better. He's been passing the halfway line. He looks like he's growing a little bit. He's really going laterally and forward instead of back all the time with his passing. He's developing as a footballer at Leeds United. So then you drop him for Luke Ayling. Why? Well, hold on a minute. He's had a really good. He's been okay. He's developing. You were talking about him developing in your press conferences. And you've dropped him. Why have you done that? For a guy who, his contract runs out next year. This is a do or die game for you, by the way, Jesse, or probably not, as we now know. Do or die game. Ayling's contract's running out next year. He seems to be all right with being a bit of a talker and someone who's on the bench and all this sort of stuff and getting Leeds going forward. The new age is someone like Christensen. Been getting better, and you drop him. Make it make sense. Hi, Connor. Great channel. Thanks, Swampy. Mostly bang on the money. Utter garbage in American parlance for the benefit of JM 49ers. Yeah, a lot would probably say the same, mate. I think that's all of your super chats, everyone, so far. Sorry, the comments are flying in. There's 1,300 of you. in the building. I'm trying my very best. Sometimes the super chats do get lost, so apologies for that. Anyway, let's get into it. So yeah, he's done that with Luke Ayling. Ayling is what we needed down the right today, better than Christensen. Well, Ayling was at fault for the first goal, Tim. He was dance passed by Willian, and then it was Mitrovic was his man. He was his man. Shrugged him off, went to the far post, and nodded it in. Definitely blame on Ilan Meslier there, and you're not putting the wholesale problems on Luke Ayling. But that, from a managerial standpoint, doesn't make sense. How's that going to impact Christensen's morale when he's been getting better? And Luke Ayling wasn't much better than him today. Just a little bit better, maybe going forward. Defensively, he's not better than him at all. No chance. So yeah, my whole point, I think, is JP, at least Ayling provides some width. Christensen just sits back. I don't think I disagree with that, mate. I thought the last couple of games he's been linking up quite nicely with Mark Rocker, and he's been trying to hug the touchline and get forward a little bit more. It's not Christensen's fault if the players don't find him as much as he would like. He's always making the runs now. The last 2 or 3 games, in my opinion, he's been really impressive, and I thought that was a bit harsh. But listen, I understand everybody is fine with the point of view and all this sort of stuff. Ayling's great going forward, but defensively he's not on it. He never has been on it in the past 18 months when he's featured, for me. So yeah, for me, he doesn't know his best 11 yet, which is a serious problem. And now we've got these tough fixtures coming up. And where do you guys genuinely think the results are going to be coming from this season? Because I thought Villa and Everton at home were bankers, maybe 4 points out of 6 there. Okay, I thought out of these 4 games. So when we had Leicester away, Fulham, and this is when we were downtrodden and still playing crap, but we'd just come off the Arsenal performance, which was all right, but same thing, different day. We lost the game, so it doesn't matter. Even though Jesse's going around doing that to the crowd when we've lost games, which I can't get my head round. However, these sort of cluster of games were pivotal for Leeds. Bournemouth coming up, Leicester, Fulham. If I turn round to you after playing the Fulham game and told you we'd conceded 5 goals and we'd lost both games, you'd have turned around and said, no, Connor, nowhere. Because it's worst case scenario. But that's where we are right now. Worst case scenario. And it's seriously, seriously worrying. Now, I don't blame Jesse Marsch for all of it. And this is always the fun bit, isn't it? Talking about the old lads at the top. I tweeted out earlier on a picture of Radrizzani laughing, and it was after the game had finished. And I did it for a reason. And it was a simple quote from Andrea Radrizzani saying, "It is impossible for us to be involved in a relegation battle this year." And then I put a little tweet below it, which was Angus Kinnear saying, "We have 2 international number 9s. And we have the best young talent in the Premier League." The young talent, by the way, it's a disgrace how he's been managed at the minute. A disgrace. Kinnear was speaking all summer about a pathway for the youngsters. Coming to Leeds United, recruiting Sonny Perkins, that pathway to the first team. That's what we've done with Joe Gelhardt. And you look what Joe Gelhardt did towards the back end of last season. Norwich, Wolves, impact at Brighton, impact against Arsenal. The best goals to minute ratio in the Premier League at 19. And this is how we've treated him this season. After that statement, after saying we've got a pathway and he's the best young talent in the country, why doesn't he play then? Because we're the worst team in the Premier League. Why does he never come on? What's he done? Isn't it a meritocracy, like I always say? When you've been brilliant and you've had a massive hand in keeping Leeds United up, by the way, which Joe Gelhardt had. Imagine if that goal against Brentford on the last day of the season would have stood. What a finish that was. The impact that this kid had on that Leeds United side last season was seismic. Seismic. I take you back to the Wolves game when Leeds were losing 1-0. He came on and changed everything. Exact same with Norwich, which was do or die. And this is how he's rewarded. So when you do look at the board, it is shambolic. And you do remember at the start of the window, Jesse was mentioning strikers, everyone. And he mentioned strikers. And I went back and had a look the other day. And I thought to myself, did he say that? Did he say strikers? Plural. Oh, he did. And then as soon as he had a mysterious meeting with Radrizzani, he didn't want a left back, and he was okay about strikers. So they took a gamble on 3 players, the board. Junior Firpo, they said they're going to stick with him, even after his injury, which is never going to work because he's not a Premier League footballer. Riddled with injuries consistently, as we know, and his suspension. The disciplinary level of Junior Firpo is just ridiculous for a footballer. He looks lost. He looks like a competition winner half the time for me. So they took a gamble on him, and they took a gamble on our international number 9s, Rodrigo and Bamford. And they are reaping what they sowed, as I spoke about on the last one. Gabe says it's unfair to say Jesse inherited this from Bielsa. The board failed Bielsa. The players failed Bielsa. Jesse inherited a bad side, but it's on the board, and Jesse still hasn't been good enough. I think that's spot on. Jesse has not been good enough. The results prove that. The in-game management is horrendous. But the board, again, took us 9 transfer windows to bring in a central midfielder. 9. We eventually do it this year because we realise Adam Forshaw can't do it in the Premier League or probably the Championship. We bring in one. But then you saw the issue today, didn't you, everyone? When we've spoken about this on the channel, bringing in a central midfielder, bringing in a striker and a left back. Why would you bring in a central midfielder, Connor? Because if Rockroar Adams gets injured, we need a profile to either replace Tyler Adams, so that combative midfielder, that ball-winning midfielder, someone to replace his attributes, and we need someone to replace Mark Rocker when he's out, who maybe is that distributor, someone like Darko JB, distributor, a little bit of a ball carrier, probably doesn't reflect his profile specifically, but someone close to if we weren't going to buy someone. But you go and get a central midfielder, 100%. They didn't do that. So, I don't know. And then you look at the absolute saga, the farce of the last day of the window when they go after 3 players and then end up bringing in an Italian 18-year-old who Jesse said was never going to feature for the first team, then went back on that and said, oh, hold on, he is going to feature for the first team because he's impressed us in training. And yeah, we're going to be seeing a lot of him. That's what I remember him saying. We're going to see a lot of him. Not seeing any of him at all. Not played a minute in the Premier League. Dropped consistently from the starting squad. Now, I don't categorically blame Jesse for that. I don't blame Jesse at all for that. That's them. And it all starts with them. It's a trickle-down effect. Another big question. Succession plan to Marcelo Bielsa. The transition from Marcelo Bielsa. Was it ever going to be a traditional, not the new Red Bull way, a traditional Red Bull system which exploits a team narrow, compact, and almost in a rectangle? Doesn't utilise some of your best players. At the time, Rafinha, Jack Harrison, Dan James. Doesn't utilise any of that. The only similarity is a press. That's it. And that's sort of on and off, really, as we've seen today. So how was it a smooth transition that they were all talking about, the board boys? The board boys were all talking about it being a smooth transition. It's not been a smooth transition at all. And I still think the players I don't think they have a clear tactical idea of what they're doing. I seriously think that when I'm watching this lot. You saw today, Jesse's on the sideline screaming at Brendan Aronson, screaming at Mark Rocker to get forward and to press. They don't know if they're coming or going. They don't know. It is disjointed from the top down. And this is why because I like Jesse, but he's not done enough. He has to go. But those boys at the top, they've done all that they can with Leeds United. A new American Leeds fan. I am now a fan of the club and I am gutted. Started seeing the starting 11 for this time Jesse to go, conceded a few goals. cannot concede. Sorry, mate, I don't really understand that. The board is made up of lifelong Leeds United fans. Comical, yeah, I guess so. Greenwood has never really looked great when he's had a chance in my eyes. I'd agree with you. Guys, just keep liking the video. There's 1,600 of you in the building. I know you Leeds fans are wanting to vent, and I'm trying to do my best to get some of yours in with me still gobbing off. We had the perfect opportunity to push on this season, and Leeds United committed football suicide and absolute negligence of young talent, and I'm sick to the back teeth of this. Just watch them leave now. And the thing is, mate, I wouldn't hold it against Joe Gelhardt. I wouldn't. You know, for someone who was at the top of the pecking order to now have Sam Greenwood and Crysencio Somerville ahead of him, he just must be baffled. He must be absolutely baffled. What have I done? Look what I did last season. It was me and Rafinha. Me and Rafinha sprinkled with a bit of Jack Harrison. Jack Harrison, another one today. I think, and I am very critical of Jack Harrison because I think he's got a high ceiling. But I am very critical of him because I think he just goes off the boil, and I think he's someone who should be carrying this Leeds team with his quality. That's why I never compare him to Rafinha, because Rafinha just carried the team on his back. But once again, I do wonder if this system is killing him a little bit. Inverted wingers, not wingers on the touchline, able to go at fullbacks, the traditional winger. What we saw with Jack Harrison, we don't see enough of that anymore. And he looks visibly frustrated for me. Visibly frustrated. Now he's a key pawn in this Leeds United side. As I've said, I'm not a massive fan. I think sometimes he can be very, very hot. Well, he is hot and cold all the time. I think he clusters assists and goals, and then for large periods of time, he's not on it for Leeds United. But I do recognise he's a key player for Leeds, and we are not utilising him at all. So, yeah, I think us talking about the selection is key as well. The starting selection, as I've spoken to you guys about, I think that Ayling Christensen, in terms of a management of a player, was really poor man management from Jesse Marsch. For me, we can't say that Christensen hasn't been developing. And I understand what people are saying in terms of an expansive style, you put Ayling there, but that's not what we do. That's not what we're told we do. We go central to the goal. Because that's where the goal is, says Jesse Marsch, and starts laughing when he's spoken about the philosophy and not going out wide. I stay there because you go this way, and that's the goal. So we don't use width. So why are we blaming Christensen for width? Because he's not told to do that. Leeds players don't look to find Christensen. They don't look to find him, ever. Mark Rocker will do it once in a blue moon. But you can't blame Christensen for that, because he's been told to do something in a specific way to help the team. So I thought that was pretty poor. Sam Greenwood is not a Premier League player. And I feel for him. I mean, he started out as a striker. Jesse has said that he's taken to his ways the most out of any of the new crop. And I think as fans, we've all ran with that. And suddenly he's got attributes which he actually hasn't got. I've still not seen a set piece that's come in for him, which I thought that's a very good set piece. It's on the money. Most of the free kicks are over the bar. For a dead ball specialist, and I just don't think he's that profile to be able to replace someone like Tyler Adams. And Tyler Adams was a huge miss today. But Sam Greenwood isn't the same player as Tyler Adams. And that's what you do in the summer. You buy a profile that when Tyler Adams is out, he comes in. And a perfect example of that would have been when Fulham went down last time, if Leeds went and recruited Harrison Reed, who's been exceptional for Fulham for years. There's an example. That's just one example of a profile of player that mirrors Tyler Adams. Not saying that would happen this season. I'm talking about when Fulham went down seasons ago, when we could have done with a defensive midfielder or a midfielder in general who can come. You could play in the six, can play in the four. So there are those types of midfielders about, especially in the Championship, who are chomping at the bit to get to the Premier League, who will be happy to sit on the bench and can just come in when Tyler Adams is injured or needs a rest. Do you remember that? Do you remember what we were told? 2 players for every position. Do you remember that one? When did that ever happen? When has that ever happened? So I don't blame Sam Greenwood, but he's not a Premier League player. And I could say that for 70% of the Leeds side. The new signings are all the best players. The foundation of the squad isn't good enough. And we all know who we're talking about. Now, the in-game management today, everyone. Sinistera goes off, which I was very, very confused at for me. And this is where Jesse is... There is a huge problem with Jesse when it comes to managing and substitutions. And this is where I think he can be open to a lot of criticism. Sinistera looked like he was hobbling a little bit. From what we understand, he was okay to carry on. Looked a little bit frustrated with Jesse when he was taken off. He was obviously taken off in the last game as well on 60 minutes, which I found ridiculous when you're chasing the game. But the more baffling thing is, Jack Harrison is a left winger, okay? And if we are playing a little bit more expansively for this game, which seemingly we were for whatever reason, is that the best road to 3 points? Should we not be doing that every single week if that's the best road to 3 points? I don't know. Jack wasn't taken from the right and put on the left, which is what I expected, a natural shift when Cini went off. Somerville came on and played on the left. And Jack stayed on the right, where Jack is poorer. And I'm watching it and I'm like, am I missing something here? Am I completely missing something? Click then comes on, the token Matthias Click, the reaction for I believe it was Fulham's second goal. Click then came on. And then Gelhardt came on in the 86th minute. And there's an argument that Rodrigo was our best player today. And he was turfed off when we're chasing the game. Or one of our better players today. I thought he was a little bit better. You know, I'll give him a bit of kudos. I thought he was a little bit better today. You know, obviously, he got his goal. Seemed a little bit quicker in transition. Wasn't holding on to the ball as much. And he was taken off. I don't get where his head goes at some point. At some points. Now, I do think he's a really good coach. I do. I think there's clearly a level to which his tactics, his modifications, his ideas can get to. There is a level. There is a ceiling, if you will. But Leeds United, under a traditional Red Bull formation, strategy, tactical plan, whatever it is, in this mould right now, are going nowhere. Because the Red Bull system that Jesse Marsch even worked under had better players. Miles better players. Tens of millions invested into it. Players who had egos, of course they did, and that was the problem at the end, but they had the technical ability to be able to really, really hone in and produce moments of individual brilliance which would get Marsch out of it at points. This Leeds side still needs mass surgery to it. Depth. Central midfielder. Arguably 2 central midfielders. Players going out who've been here since 2017. Turfing them out. It's done. Thank you for your service. Goodbye. Arguably 2 strikers. Arguably. We saw Bamford today at 1-1, missing another one-on-one. That's 9 big chances missed this season. He started 4 games. So there is an argument that Bamford needs to be replaced. And this is foresight. What did we see? And this is coming back to the board again. What did we see last summer? When we were all crying out for those positions, they went out and spent 13 million quid on a left back. They then went and spent 30 million on Dan James. When at the club, we had Jack Harrison, Helder Costa and Rafinha. And then they brought in a keeper. So they spent the best part of 45 to 50 million quid last summer on positions where we were, you know, the left back were all very happy, but then we saw Junior Firpo play. So we're 2 years behind. And the squad still needs surgery. So I'm looking at someone else coming in and thinking, I don't know what you're going to do, fella. You've got a horrific run of fixtures coming up. We've had the best run of the bottom teams. Our toughest teams have been Arsenal at home and Chelsea at home. Chelsea sacked the manager 2 weeks later. A week later it was, actually. Arsenal at home, fair enough. But Arsenal at home, the rest have been winnable. All of them. And we are where we are. What hope have we got for this lad coming in, whoever it's going to be? Yeah, Connor, I've watched a load of Red Bull football, and this is not it. It's not It's not cliche. It's not anymore. You know, it's definitely evolved. And what I will say as well about the Red Bull system is, you know, the manager does have all this sort of stuff. Marsch did say when he was in the the Red Bull system, that he didn't really feel it and he shouldn't have gone. He picked up 18 points in 14 games. Then Tedesco came in and picked up 18 points in 8 games with the same squad. So I understand the quality is completely different. The disparity between Red Bull and Leeds is huge. Huge. What I'm saying is a manager can make an imprint on a side. They can make them play better. That's what they're there for. It's harsh treatment. We all know that. Extremely harsh being a manager. But you sign up for it. And the rewards are gargantuan. They're fantastic. But the lows are the lows. They're deep, deep lows. We know that. But it is what it is. That's life. You're a manager. I like Marsch. Seems like a really good guy. But there is a limit to what he can do. There is a limit, and we've seen that. We've seen a lack of tactical flexibility. We've seen poor use of substitutions. And a staggering variety on a starting 11. When, you know, a lot of the time he's had a lot of players available to him, which if we are comparing to Marcelo Bielsa, which I hate doing, as you guys all know, but if we are comparing, they were hammered with injuries, although context that needs to be applied there is Bielsa was getting them doing murder ball 2 to 3 times a week, which was picking up soft tissue injuries in training, so that, once again, context needs to be applied, but you get my drift, you know? Jamie says, spot on, Connor. We could have had Howe in before Bielsa went Bournemouth to Leeds. Surely at that point, he'd be interested. Yeah, what a job he's doing. What a job he's doing. D says the Leipzig players were not having these tactics, and now we see why. You can understand it, though, D, as well. And this is the thing when it comes back to the board and the transition from Marcelo Bielsa to another manager. Surely it had to be control. Surely it had to be dominance. A little bit more onus on defensive structure than Marcelo did with his free-flowing, mad football. But still, playing expansive. Playing wide. Because most managers do that anyway. Because that's how you assert your control and dominance. It's by having the ball. It's not about kicking the ball and then looking at turnovers and not wanting the ball. That's archaic. It's archaic. And how are you going to do that against the best players in the world? What we're going to when Man City comes to town, and I know we're not expected to beat Manchester City, but is the plan A to try win turnovers in their half, apply pressing units in their half, and to do that, we don't want the ball. We just want to kick the ball to Kevin De Bruyne and Gundogan and Bernardo Silva and try win it back in their half. What then happens when they pass through us? What do we do then? Consistently, because they're that good. Or what happens when, like we saw again today, like we saw at Leicester, like we saw at Palace, like we saw Wolves do, Southampton do, Brighton, Brentford. Yes, people, we have faced all of these teams and picked up 1 win out of those, by the way. What do we do when those teams just knock the ball into the channel and beat the press? Because they do. Fulham were doing it today with Willian in the first half, knocking the ball over. Then what? There's got to be some pragmatism. We've got to. What's next, Jesse? What are we doing then? How are we going to combat this? It's like a game of chess, isn't it? Football, and it's at the highest level. How are we going to stop him from doing that? Because you can't just be reactive when we go 2 or 3 goals down. You've got to be proactive when it comes to tactical plans and instruction. And when the players are looking confused when it comes to a press, when it comes to why they're coming off, Sinistera, we've seen Mark Rocker come off and be like, well, why am I coming off? I'm clearly the best player here. What am I doing? Well, I'm fine to carry on. No, we're going to put so-and-so on. We're going to put Click on instead. And stuff like that. I think there's just a whole... It's all a little bit confusing right now. Steve Bond says, no point in changing the manager. It's the team. Although the manager is shit, get rid of Rodrigo, Bamford, Firpo, Cooper and the board. Doesn't sound like the board will sack him. So get ready for Championship football. And... really sad, Chronicles. Really sad to admit this, but that's where this is going, everyone. Now, you saw Villa very, very recently be extremely reactive when it came to sacking Steven Gerrard. The crowd had turned on him. The away crowd, I think they just got beaten by Fulham, incidentally, 3-0. The away crowd turned on him. They turned on him as well at Villa Park. The exact same thing's happening with Leeds United. But our board aren't being reactive. Now I wonder why, this is me just putting my perspective out there. But obviously Jesse's in a lucrative contract at the minute. Can they afford to let him go? Can they afford to go and attract a top manager to the Premier League, which I think is a big selling point, and pay compensation for that manager? Or is it going to have to be a case of, if we were to let Jesse Marsch go and he gets a big payout, which he will, we have to go for a free agent? Steven Gerrard. Someone of that ilk, who's just been sacked, by the way, by a team who, before this weekend, were below us, and has lost his assistant manager, who really is the brains behind the operation. Someone of that ilk, it's just an example, because he's out of work, and we could get him in straight away without paying any compensation. Because I don't understand why they've not got rid of him. I can't for the life of me understand why tonight Jesse Marsch is coming out and he said he's spoken to the board. And this is nice, it's great, it's fine that, it's not fine at all, but it's nice that they have this relationship, that it's, they're all unified and behind each other. Now, I'll take you back to last season, and I was getting vilified. I was calling for Marcelo Bielsa to be gone mid-November. That's me being honest. When I was watching Leeds United, I was thinking, this isn't going well. We were getting battered week in, week out. The performances were turning a little bit. We weren't putting out those numbers. We were being a little bit lacklustre. The injuries were piling up. The training load was increasing. There weren't great murmurs coming out from the club in terms of selection, in terms of the relationship between Victor Orta and Marcelo Bielsa, from what we heard from the journalists. And I thought to myself, at this point, you've got to pull the trigger, because this could get ugly. We could lose. Look at the fixtures we've got coming up. And at that point, if you remember, from December to January, Leeds had a really tough run. Now, they picked up points against Burnley and West Ham, which kept Bielsa subsequently in the job. And then they did it with 12 games to go. So I and a couple of other Leeds fans were calling for it in November. We thought we'd have pulled the trigger then, and I'm not saying it would have been a Marsch thing, but what you'd have done then, everybody, is by pulling the trigger then, if the board would have dipped the hand in the pocket, they would have been able to back the new manager in January. Bring some players in, 3 or 4 players in January, who are going to be able to give a little bit of sustenance to that Leeds United side. And with the new manager, they'd have to do that. But they didn't do that, and for me, they did it too late with 12 games to go. We stayed up, thanks to Rafinha for me. But overall, they did it too late. So how late are they going to leave this then? Are we going to wait until the World Cup? Is it not going to be a thing after the World Cup? Is Jesse going to just be training with the Leeds side during that World Cup period? And then what happens? Because we've got City when we come back. Then we've got West Ham away. Then we've got Newcastle, I believe. Then Villa away. So what happens then? How long do we leave this? Because this is, you're sticking a plaster on a gash. And he's even referenced it. He said, we need to stop the bleeding. It's a perfect reference point. We need to stop the bleeding. The bleeding's not stopping. We need stitches. And who that man who's going to apply the stitches is, I have no idea. He's going to have to be someone who is going to be a top worker. But what I'm telling you is in my opinion, if this carries on, Leeds are going to be playing in the Championship next season. Because this style of football is getting us nowhere. Even if we'd have picked up a win today, I knew people, I'm not going to name them, you might know a couple, but friends of mine who are messaging me saying, I want short-term pain for long-term gain here. I want Leeds to lose, so he gets the boot, Jesse, and then we bring a manager in who keeps Leeds in the Premier League, a long-term successor, someone who's going to be able to improve the side. Short-term pain for long-term gain. And I thought to myself, I couldn't get on board with that because I never want Leeds to lose, but I understood it. But then it's almost a double negative today because we've lost the game and he's still got full backing. Are they skint? Can they pay him off? We've just got rid of Dan James. I know Dan James isn't lighting the world up, but he's a senior footballer at Leeds United. He's a Welsh international. He'll be going to the World Cup. We let him go and we brought in Willie Nyonso, who doesn't make the starting squad. What's going on here? Do we have money? What next, Lee says, in possession, we've gone from one extreme to the other. Why can't we just recruit a well-balanced manager who can adapt his system to the circumstances, maintaining the core principles? Like Roy Keane said about there aren't the players in the team that are good enough, and that goes for us. It took Arteta a couple of years to get Arsenal to where they are, trusted process. Well, it did, but it's a completely different scenario. Now, people mention Arteta all the time, and I don't know why. I don't know if you're a Leeds fan, mate, but people do this all the time. Arsenal were in a completely different position. If relegation was on the cards for Arsenal, I wonder if the board would have pulled the trigger. And context needs to be applied. Arteta never went through a run like this. And you never really saw the style of football that we're seeing at the minute. At least with Arteta, you saw a style of football. You saw the players really coming into it. You saw the board backing and making sensible decisions when it came to transfer windows, backing the manager. Our board don't do that. And not only don't they do that, but they've gone so far away from what Marcelo Bielsa was, which is what made this cohort of players so great. It's staggering. D says it has to be done before the World Cup. If he's still here during the World Cup, then he stays. I think so. I think you're right. How happy would the 49ers be with Jesse being sacked, Connor? It's a good point. Very, very good point. Right, we can't afford to let Jesse go. He's still got 3 years to go. Bielsa only had 3 months left on his contract. Lee, there you go. And this is the thing. Can they afford to let him go? Can they go and afford to pay compensation to another club to get another manager who's maybe a good European talent? I mentioned Knutson, who's at FK Bodo at the minute, who looks fantastic. He'd be such a brilliant, I think he'd be an excellent acquisition for Leeds United. Expansive football, exciting, possession-based, control, dominate games. FK Bodo have battered some top European teams, including Roma recently. I think he'd be a great addition to the Premier League. But they'd have to pay the money. And do they do that? Will they do that? I'm really, really worried about... I'm almost more worried about the board, their mentality, than I am Jesse Marsch. Because I think Jesse Marsch will just try to do his best and try and improve. But I just wonder with this board, do they have the club's best interests at heart anymore? Or are they just brain dead? Marcelo will stay. Thank you for your donation, mate. Zidane is available. Somehow I don't think Zidane will be coming to Leeds United, staggeringly. Whatever happened to the narrative of Victor Orta being a genius and going to Chelsea? Overall, his track record isn't that great. Yeah, maybe they just saw what was happening. Before Bielsa, we never had a manager who could take Leeds forward. Let's be honest, Bielsa has changed the club. We were fortunate to have a gaffer like him, and now he's gone. The club has never been able to afford a high-profile manager. Jesse's a trier, but it's going to be a long road for him. Some players haven't performed this season for him. I do think, though, a tactical plan. I do think about... ideas being in place. I do think on the training pitch, having a clear identity helps the players perform to their best. Now, I'm not saying the unforced errors are to do with Jesse Marsch, but everyone, this Leeds United side, because there's not any quality there, will continue to make unforced errors against world-class operators or even just very good operators at the top level, the top league in the world. They will continue to make mistakes because they're not as good, and they will never be as good. Some of these players were with Leeds United in 2017 under Thomas Christensen when we were in the Championship, getting outplayed by teams like Cardiff. We have evolved so slowly, and we have the time to do it. Every single window, we have the time to do it. We have the ability to be able to do it. Let me just, sorry, just getting some super chats in, everyone. Gabe, hi, mate. Some of us don't seem to understand that it can be both the board's fault and the players being poor and still say Jesse hasn't been good enough. Yeah, exactly, Gabe. I think the problem is there is a lot of, and I can understand the frustration, but it's one thing or another. It's not one thing or another. It's simultaneous. Jesse can be a bad fit for Leeds United, which I think he is, ultimately, and the board can be completely negligent, which they are. They can go hand in hand. They really can. And I don't think it's one or the other. I don't think it's, I think we're all frustrated at the board because we've seen this for so long now. We'll be fine once we get Gakpo. Gakpo in January. Cheers to your donation, mate. I needed to laugh. Imagine that. Imagine the sales pitch now. Because remember, everyone, Leeds, allegedly, according to all the journos and according to all the big bodies around the place, Leeds are going to be going back in for him in January. So let's see how that one plays out. Hey, Cody, do you want to come to Leeds right now? Listen, I know you balled out at the World Cup. I know your goal contributions are on the same level as Erling Haaland. I know Man United and Chelsea are looking to put in big offers for you and pay you ridiculous money and put you into actual Champions League competitive 11s. But you can come to Leeds. Come on. You know you want to. Look, we've been on Amazon Prime twice. Yeah, we don't need a left back. We'll just bring you in. And you can be the star boy with Sinistera. How about that? Yeah, what a sales pitch that'll be. Connor's killing my super chats. Oh, Gabe, I'm sorry, mate. I'm trying to get into all of them. Honestly, I need to put slow mode on. Lucas just said, I love the videos, Connor. One thing I'm seeing is Aronson. Aronson has been poor, trying to turn 2 or 3 times and losing the ball, but there's no 1-2s at all. Thank you, Luca. I'd agree with you, mate. I think the only thing with Aronson is maybe at the start he was being a little bit quicker in terms of his distribution. Very, very quick. Very, very good on the ball. Sometimes I feel now he's almost waiting for the foul, which sometimes he won't get because of how bone idle the referees are in the English Premier League. So when he's waiting for the foul and the foul isn't given, there's a lot of time that Aronson spends on the deck because he gets hammered. If he's just to release that ball a little bit quicker, we don't have to go through all that, the issues of Aronson going down, losing the ball being turned over in critical areas. And he was like that at the start. I thought he was a lot quicker. So I don't know what's really gone on now. I think they're all just, when you take an extra 2 or 3 touches, because you're low on confidence. It's because you don't trust your first and second touch. Your first and second touch, you don't trust it, so you'll take 3, 4, 5. That's confidence. So there you go. Gabe says, Jesse failing to manage the team he has. The board and the players are first and second responsible, but Marsch hasn't got it right. With the team he has, he needs to survive. We need a survival specialist right now. I don't know about that, Gabe, because survival specialist, if you bring in, let's say, a Benitez, who is just a mercenary for me, just comes in, he's a bit of a bloodhound when it comes to money. He only cares about one club in his life, and that's Liverpool. I think that if you were to bring in someone like that, it is a short-term plan. And I understand that money is on the line. I get it, but I'd love to have the best of both worlds, where there's an actual succession plan there for Leeds United going forward, and someone who can just keep us up with it, with us playing attractive football, because we do have a half decent side. I think there's no chance it's got depth, and there are still holes in it. But if you address some of that in January, you never know. Swampy says the problem with the board is wealthier members, 49ers, can't throw in more cash than the controlling shareholder Rads. The board needs to change. I'd agree with that. I think that's a really good point, mate. And I think is that me done on super chats? Apologies if it's not. I've just been talking. I need to start recording these, everyone. Jason, yeah, I think that's me up to date now. I don't know who I'd get, mate, to be honest with you. As I say, I think Knutson would be a good shout. Adam says, cheers for your donation, mate. I don't think the board is entirely wrong about having good young talent. We're just not playing them. Yeah, Adam, I don't disagree, but they always talk about a pathway. Our CEO has gone on podcasts and talked about pathways and having that level of entry into the starting 11 of a Premier League side. That doesn't happen. In a strange sort of way, it has happened for Greenwood, but Greenwood's been bombed out for ages, so there's no consistency there. There's no building up of confidence and morale. He's bombed out for ages, then he's brought back in. He was sort of heavily involved last year, wasn't he? But now he's been bombed out, obviously, because we've got better players, which naturally happens, but that's not a pathway, It's not a pathway, and when needs must, you come in. You know what I mean? And I thought he was poor today. Joe Gelhardt, though, he performs above his stations, and was key, seismic in keeping Leeds up. And just doesn't play anymore. Doesn't play. What about Nuno, Connor? Yeah, that's who my old man wants. I'm not too sure on that. I can't stand Nuno football. I do think there are managers. I honestly think that managers out there, there is enough. There is enough. And Jacob's got a couple of mine here. Knutson, Beale, Gallardo, the managers who play attractive football and managers who are more realistic to join us than people like Poch. There's no chance Poch, Zidane, managers of that ilk are ever going to come to Leeds, everybody. This isn't Leeds in early 2000s where we're Champions League high flyers. This is Leeds United, bottom of the form table in the Premier League, probably the worst team in the Premier League currently. This isn't, we're not high-flying Leeds United anymore, unfortunately. We are where we are, and if things don't change, we will be staring Millwall away in the face. And that's the hard truth, because you guys know Premier League season is done like that. We're already way over a quarter, going into a third of the season being done. We're steaming on up to a third of the season being done. Then it's going to get to half the season being done. And, half the season being done, you could be cut away by that point. They have to start being proactive when it comes to this. They really do. Marcelo says Marcelo, Gallardo, coach, and Ben Brereton Diaz, and we got a team plus Leeds young players. Yeah, Gallardo's getting a lot of mention at the minute, but I guess it's the risk that the risk that you're always going to have with bringing an international manager in at this stage is just that adaptability to the Premier League. And Gallardo's obviously never been in the Premier League before. Knutson hasn't either. And that's why you ideally want to be giving these managers a pre-season. And that's why I understand when people are saying, your Benitez, your Dyche, managers like this, because you feel like these managers are going to come in and give a short-term quick fix. Your Gallardos, your Knutsons, managers of that ilk are going to give a long-term projection. But would they really want to come in mid-season to this? And it's where the board have just, the board have done what they've done. Got to have the players to dominate games, get a grip. Is that you saying that we do have the players to dominate games? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you're saying there, but yeah. Yeah. I think that's pretty much all the chats, everyone. But that's I've not really, believe it or not, I've not really got much to say, much else to say. I think I've got everything off my chest. I hope you've enjoyed this anyway. But my overriding thoughts are, the changes need to be made. There's 1.8k in the room. Everyone, do us a favour. I think we've never had 2,000 live viewers before, so thank you so much. Really appreciate that. I hope you've had a bit of therapy here with me, letting it all out and making you feel a little bit better, even though it is terrible at the minute. It's just awful being a Leeds fan at the minute. Oh, it's so miserable. It's so depressing. Really is. But if you wouldn't mind smashing a like, it's free. And if you want some additional content, we do the debrief extra. We do loads of shows extra on the Patreon link in the description below. Just for a £5 a month, everyone. It's about 12 videos a month for you guys. So I really appreciate it. But yeah, would you take Corbrand? I wouldn't, mate. No, I think that's a little bit of a risk, to be honest with you. I think West Brom in advance chats them anyway. But it is what it is, guys. I guess we move on. We move on to Liverpool. God, good God. Liverpool with Jesse is what it is. What can we do? Hopefully we'll hear some news in the near future, guys. But listen, have a good one, and I'll see you in a bit. Cheers.